Greetings and welcome to another Tomorrow's World webcast. My name is Wallace Smith. It's wonderful to have you here. And this story in the Atlantic just captured me. I love seeing things like this, and I appreciate it when scientists are honest. Not that I'm saying scientists generally aren't honest, but there are some moments of honesty that just really rise above the rest. The title of the story in the Atlantic is Rewriting Earth's Creation Story. It's an article by Rebecca Boyle. It's dated September 27th, 2016. And let me explain essentially what it's talking about. Without reading a lot of it, they point out that in terms of trying to understand the origins of the earth from a completely secular perspective, not looking at the Bible, which does tell us a lot about the origins of the earth, but just looking at the rocks and trying to figure out on their own, they found it's hard to study the origin of the earth using the earth because the earth is so dynamic. Even some of the oldest rocks on earth, they've often just been kind of spit out from the interior because the earth is always eating its own crust and making new crust, and it's so dynamic that it's almost like going to a crime scene where all the fingerprints are constantly dissolving or getting smudged, or new fingerprints are showing up all of a sudden. So they have a hard time. So there was a great focus on using the moon as an opportunity to try to figure out Earth's past. The idea being that the moon has been probably Earth's longtime companion, and it's very geologically inactive. So let's study the rocks on the moon, and maybe that'll tell us something about the Earth, because it's more sterile, etc. Well, in that, they've drawn a conclusion about the Earth supposedly forming over 4 billion or so years, that there was a certain period in Earth's history that they called the Hadean, after Hades, that there was this terrible time in the solar system where there was this bombardment of asteroids and material, and that the Earth would have been a hellish place, just molten lava everywhere and volcanoes. It just would have been absolutely inhospitable, just this lava-covered monstrous land. And they call it the Hadean period. And that has been a standard assumption of Earth's origin story for quite some time, except they're discovering that it was probably wrong. And there's no real basis for it whatsoever. What they're discovering is the idea of using the moon as a time capsule was way faulty. And they're not matching up that data from the moon with other data from rocks on Earth. And the stories are really conflicting each other, and they're going back and actually questioning, was that really even a smart assumption to make at the beginning? Wasn't that kind of a leap? And the article really, the Atlantic sometimes has some really long articles. This is actually a pleasantly short one if you want to look it up. But they point out that really a lot of this was based on rocks collected by the Apollo astronauts. And I'll just go ahead and jump into the article here. It says, samples collected by Apollo astronauts helped give rise to the late heavy bombardment idea, this idea that all this material was just bombarding the Earth and the inner solar system and such, because of chemical traces embedded within them. That is the samples from the moon. However, they conclude, because they can't make this data correspond to other things that should also show the same kind of heavy bombardment, they conclude that the Apollo rocks might be fooling us. They move on. It says, in a new research paper, Harrison and Patrick Bernanke, also of UCLA, argue the isotope dating methods might have made too many assumptions about a late bombardment. The rocks might not have been hit just once, but many times since their formation. Multiple impacts could have made the rocks appear younger than they really are. What's more, the Apollo samples cover only about 4% of the moon, Bernanke says. He says it's very easy to throw ejecta, that's the material that kind of comes out of the ground whenever a meteorite hits. It's very easy to throw ejecta around the moon. If you pick up a loose rock on the moon, you can't be certain that rock came from that region. How do we know we didn't just pick stuff up that was affected by the same impact event? He said it could have been something totally different. They're starting to realize this was a really bad assumption on our part. They admit here, says, we still can't paint a full picture of the Earth's turbulent early days. And I want to say, I've seen nature programs and science programs that, oh, we're going to lay it all out for you. Here's the history of the earth. And now they're saying, wow, we're really not sure. It says, one thing is clear, however. Harrison says there has never been any evidence to support the canonical hellish vision of magma lakes and tar-covered volcanoes showered in fiery meteors. Now here's the quote. Here's the big quote. There is absolutely not a single scrap of observational evidence that requires that scenario ever took place. We as a scientific community created an origin myth that has no more intellectual value than one Genesis, or that is, than Genesis 1. He says, although we're very quick to criticize those that operate on faith, that's exactly what we did. Now, I'm not saying he has an accurate picture of faith. He's talking about blind faith, which frankly is a whole nother story. And I'm certainly not saying he's accurate about saying that Genesis has no intellectual value. What I am trying to say is when it comes to science, give it a chance to catch up. People get so upset when science disagrees with the Bible, but I guarantee you, give it enough time, the Bible validates itself. Scientific discovery should be taken with that grain of salt, understanding that there's very likely more to learn. And the Bible promises us, let God be true, but every man a liar. Thanks for watching. Please check out everything we have available at tomorrowsworld.org.